Campaign update. Francis Leachy in Devonport in Tasmania, and I think Michele O'Neill is also in Tasmania, only briefly because she's on a magical mystery tour in the last few days of the campaign. The president of the ACTU joins me now. Hi, Michele.
Tasmania, but I'm in Launceston at the airport. That we have to have a few announcements while I'm here. I came in this morning, had a fantastic time with some great Launceston union members outside the Woolies talking about wages and prices. And you know where I'm heading next? I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to Sydney, and then by the end of the day, I'm going to be in Wollongong, ready to be in Nowra tomorrow.
Unbelievable. I mean, that's the nature of the last few days of an election campaign. Plenty have been going on this week. One of the major issues that has broken this week, which is obviously hugely of interest to us as unionists and those of us concerned with the future of Australian workers and their families and their well-being, is Scott Morrison's so-called housing plan. But really, it's another front in the war on superannuation and retirement savings for workers, Michele.
You know, the Libs really hate super, don't they? And you know why they hate the superannuation system? Because it was something that workers fought for and won. And then I reckon they hate the idea that with industry super, that working people have any control or say over what happens with their retirement incomes and have an influence on what goes on with money. It's sort of like, well, that's what the rich people should look after, and you lot should butt out. Anyway,
stay in your lane.
Exactly. But this was a shocking announcement. It's bad because what it is saying that it's dressing it up as a housing policy. This is not a housing policy. This is an attack on superannuation. And what it will mean is that if they get elected and put this in place, is that people can raid their super to try and get enough money to buy a house. It'll do two things. It'll push up the price of houses. So, you know, it won't actually help access or affordability. It'll actually make houses less affordable. But also, of course, what it does is leave people in poverty at the other end of your life. So you think, oh, this is good, I'm going to get to buy a house. But what we know about super is if you don't start building it up early and you don't keep the money in there, you don't have enough to live on at the other end. And that's just really condemning people to poverty in their old age.
So it's one of the issues that has broken big. What are you hearing from people as you've been going around about their attitude towards this policy that Scott Morrison has sort of dumped on the table at the last minute in this campaign?
A mixture of things, Francis. I think some people are pretty cynical about, him doing it in the last sort of gasp of hopefully his government and his time as Prime Minister, and that, they can see it's really trying to attract people that maybe haven't paid a lot of attention to super, and, it's trying to get to younger people that might think, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about that. So people are worried about it. Some people, I think that, you'd be able to get a house. But of course, a lot of people I've spoken to, and this is what I've heard from most people, is them saying, look, I've got so little money in super and housing is so expensive. The thought of ever being able to buy a place, let alone be able to get a deposit with that, just makes no sense. So my view is that most people are either thinking it's cynical or thinking it won't work for them.
The other major announcement this week was policy costings from the government, and they're claiming that save $2.3 billion, I think it was, or $2.4 billion in order to pay for their campaign promises by slashing the public service, which in the end is slashing services to working Australians. I mean, it's a gobsmacking decision to make at a time when we've just experienced the absolutely essential nature of those services during the pandemic and other crises we've faced, just how vital those things are to the day-to-day well-being of working Australians.
This is another one. It's $3.3 billion that they're slashing out of the public sector, and that equates to about 5,500 jobs of workers in the public sector. And when we think about what those jobs are, of course, a lot of them are frontline jobs, people that we rely on when there's a crisis, like the ones you talk about, when there was bushfires, when there was floods, when we're in the pandemic. We need those workers in Centrelink. We need the workers that are, really helping people in emergencies, providing the both the information and the infrastructure behind what we need to support people and get government services out there at the times when people need them the most. And this, instead of actually fixing up public services and the public sector, and the biggest problem with it, of course, is they've been outsourcing so much of that work using labour hire and consultants, which cost a fortune. So instead of fixing that issue, they're just going to cut money and cut jobs. That'll really hurt the workers who lose their jobs, but it'll also really hurt ordinary people who rely on the people who do those jobs and those services. It'll get tougher for us to get the services and support we need, and it'll be really tough on those workers in the public sector.
Now, you and I have been out campaigning in Tasmania. The news today that wages have only grown by 0.7% in the last quarter, 2.4% annually, while inflation is double that. So it's just underlined, has it not, that this government has got no capacity to deal with cost of living pressures.
It so proves what we've been saying, that this government has done nothing to address the fact that workers' wages are going up less than half the rate that inflation's going up. So what that means is that workers' wages are going backwards in real terms. And what this shows is that the government's got it wrong again. Their figures about what they said in the budget really overestimated what was going to happen with wages. Wages are the lowest they've been. This is the worst wages decision in more than 20 years. And it shows that by the end of this year, the average working person is going to have lost $4,000 because of the difference between how much their wages have gone up compared to the cost of everything. I've been standing outside a supermarket today in Lonnie, and of course, you know, you look at the price of fruit and veggies, look at the price of meat, and then you add the housing affordability and petrol, all of those other costs as well. And it's so tough for people, and this proves it. This government loves low wages. This government has actually done everything they can to suppress wages, keep them low, and now we're dealing with the consequences with prices of everything going up.
A few more days to go. As you said, you've got a few more miles on the clock in the last run to the line here as well. We've talked about this all the way through, Michele, just how important those conversations are with people who still might be undecided about which way to go. And, we've got to also be, understand why people are undecided. There's a lot of insecurity and fear in the community, and the government certainly fueled a lot of that. So these are big decisions for people to make. So what's the best way for those of us who are committed to a course of action here to talk about those issues with people who are still considering, what government they want?
You know what I think, Francis, and we've been doing a lot of this, and today we've been talking to people about this, which is this flyer that we're giving people outside the supermarkets that is all about showing how much meat's gone up, 7.6%, veggies, 6.6%, and then talking about how much wages have gone down. It's a really good way of this conversation that we can have with people about not just what's happening in your life, and everyone's experiencing this, but also the fact that governments can do something about it. Like today has been another part of the national wage case, which is the case we run to try and win better wages for 1 in 4 Australian workers. Unions in there fighting for a 5.5% pay increase. And the government saying that low wages are important, and instead of putting in a submission saying, yeah, we back a lift in wages, and good on Anthony Albanese for saying that wages shouldn't be going backwards, that the Fair Work Commission should back wage increases for workers. Instead of doing that, they just say, oh, nothing to do with us. Every single time they walk away. Scott Morrison, every single time when he could do something that's going to help people, does the opposite, makes it tougher, makes it harder. So I reckon those conversations about what's happening in your life, what's happening in the people's you're talking to, and reminding people that a government can make a difference, but only if they vote, and only if they vote, get rid of this government.
Yeah, so just to finish, a couple more sleeps. I know you've got a lot of miles on the clock to get through before we get to election day. A lot of conversations to have. A lot of people still talking to undecided voters in their lives. What's the best way, do you think, to get them to think about the issues that matter?
Well, from my experience, Francis, talking to people about what's happening in their life, what's happening when they go to the supermarket, when they try and cover the rent, fill up the car, and the fact that governments can do something about wages and can make a difference in people's lives is really the important conversations to have. We've got this that we're getting out outside supermarkets in these last few days that points out how much, things like meat going up 7.6%, veggies 6.6%, but wages going down, down, wages are down. And, those conversations I reckon are important, but then the link that a government could do something. Like today, Scott Morrison could have put in a submission to the Fair Work Commission supporting pay increases for the lowest paid workers in the country. As rightly said by Anthony Albanese, is it really the case that, he's not supporting workers on the lowest wages getting just over an extra $1 an hour? So I reckon those are the conversations that matter. And the other thing I want to say, Francis, is that there's still lots of people who haven't made up their mind, and a lot of people that rely on their mates, their friends, their family members who might be a bit more involved in thinking about this to say, oh, what do you reckon? So every single conversation is worth having. Never think it's over until that final moment. So I want to encourage people to not sleep, day and night, online and in real life. Make sure you're having those conversations, and we won't stop fighting till we win change in workers' lives, but changing the government is absolutely essential as the first stage in that.
Michele, thank you so much for talking to us again. I know it's a very busy time. I think your boarding call is about to come, so we better let you go. And we'll catch you on the other side of the campaign, comrade. Good luck with the last few days.
Thanks, Francis. It's been fantastic to have these updates with you. Thanks for everything you're doing too. Good luck in the rest of the time in Tassie. See you, everybody. See you on the other side, and stay strong.
Authorised by McManus, Australian Council of Trade Unions, Melbourne.